Sadistic Penguin Studios presents the At the Show podcast with Tom Yumper Garcia.
Okay, you people sit tight, hold the fort, and keep the home fires burning. And if we're not back by dawn, call the president.
And Tony Tulsa Burt.
I don't know this industry jargon, YP, MP, whatever, okay? All I know is that I cannot get a record contract. We cannot get a record contract unless I take these tapes.
It's almost time, so grab a drink, get your popcorn ready, and join the film discussion with two guys from Chicago talking movies.
Ooh, we just had to get that Jeff Goldblum in there.
Oh, sorry.
Welcome back to the At the Show podcast presented to you by Sadistic Penguin Studios. I'm one of your co-hosts, Tom Yumper Garcia, and I'm with my other co-host, Tony the Sugar Baggy Bird. How you doing, my man?
I am doing well, doing good. Excited to make our way down to Jurassic Park soon.
Yes, sir. This is a film that we mention a lot, but we haven't gone to a real deep dive into it. And man, I got a lot of info on this one today.
Hopefully we can keep it right around the 2-hour mark. Not
well,
19 hours.
If we go over, I know somebody named Cotton will be very excited about that.
Oh.
But you are listening to or watching the At the Show podcast. This is episode number 29 for the season 4. Getting closer to that 30 mark, Tony. Can we hit 40 this year?
Well, I was doing some math earlier, and I think we are going to hit it and beyond.
Oh, awesome. Good stuff, my friend. So, Tone, before we get into this big deep dive, we also have our segment coming back today of Keelin's Cuts. She's got one of a funnier movie that she picked, which we'll go over in a little bit. But let's kick off things and go into what we've been watching this week, my man.
Let's do it.
That's a me. And also, what were you just watching?
What you been watching, my man?
I've been watching, a couple movies. It's been a long week, so I had to dig back into my trove of classics. And first off, I have a movie called Blind Fury. Not sure if you're familiar with this movie, but it stars Rutger Hauer, okay, and he unfortunately does not have any eyes due to the Vietnam War, and he comes back. And what's really ironic here is there's, again, I didn't plan this. He comes back to his friend's Terrence O'Quinn, who stars in our next movie. I did not plan that they're in both of these movies, but he comes back and nobody really knows it, but he actually is really awesome at martial arts. And his blind cane actually doubles as this awesome. It's like a sword. It's really cool, but the movie's also loaded with like your awesome Steven Seagal, what's that? Van Damme type hilarious tropes too.
Hey man, what's going on here? I'm so sorry.
It's pretty much like the whole movie. He's playing like really like, oh, I'm like you don't know it, but the reality is the bad guys are pretty much stepping into his lair because he's amazing at what he does. If you have not seen this, Rutger Hauer is one of my favorite underground actors. I love him in The Hitcher. I love him in Blade Runner. I love him in True Blood. I pretty much love him in. I've seen Hobo with a Shotgun. You name it. I love Rutger Hauer in it. He's great in this one. Definitely worth checking out if you have not seen it. I think you're muted. Am I muted? What's going on?
Oh, I am muted. I'm sorry.
Oh,
I have not seen this one. I am a huge fan of Rutger Hauer.
Oh my God. Yeah, I know you said you're going to drink some coffee and stay up till 5. This might be the only reason to do that. No, I'm just kidding.
My God. Love him in Blade Runner. I loved him in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Me and my wife watched Hobo with a Shotgun. She did not get the humor. And then looking at the cutscene, that you showed in this film, I can tell you it has given that Hobo in a Shotgun feels. So I might watch this. Eventually.
The reason I brought it back into the fold is actually because you brought up movies like I Come in Peace, those early 90s, late 80s, kind of like Seagal, but not really like Seagal could fit into those things. But this one's a good one. Check it out.
It definitely will. It looks like it's a remake of a Japanese Zatoichi film series. So this is the 17th film remake. So they have more than 17 films. Wow.
Very, very, very interesting. Did not know that. Know that. But definitely good if you like Rutger Hauer. The second movie I watched is It Is Time, right around the corner, and I've already started watching Halloween movies because I just can't get enough of them. One of my favorite Halloween series is the Stepfather series. Stepfather 1, Stepfather 2. I really love Stepfather 3. I'll even take that remake with the fella from I forgot what that show was that was on FX. Oh, the one with they were surgeons, Nip Tuck. He plays the stepfather. But in this original with Terry O'Quinn, this movie is ridiculous in so many ways. The idea that a man can the idea that he can murder one family and then change his disguise and then have a brand new family is a ridiculous trope that this movie really puts to the forefront. But there's this scene that I use sometimes when I'm not feeling the best. And here it is right here.
Huh? Wait a minute. Who am I here?
Jerry.
He in the movie he's pretending he can't remember which character or which husband he is because he's murdered so many families. It's really a ridiculous movie series, but won all the same. And Terry O'Quinn, who's been on Lost, again in Blind Fury and a lot of things. He's pretty good in this.
Double
you ever
Impact.
seen the Stepfather series?
Yes, I have, a long time ago. Yeah, Terry O'Quinn's in Double Impact too. He's their
yes, there you go.
Their guardian.
Sure is.
Yeah, it's a pretty deep cut Stepfather. It's one that's kind of like, I throw Stepfather up there with the House series. Remember House?
Yeah.
It's kind of up there where it doesn't get mentioned a lot, but we've all seen it at least one time in our lifetimes.
Well, Terry O'Quinn's in Stepfather 1 and Terry O'Quinn's in Stepfather 2. What's really great is, I don't even know his name because I've never seen him in anything else, but the guy they got playing Stepfather 3, because in the ridiculousness in Stepfather 3 is at the beginning, he goes to his surgeon who rearranges his face and he comes out looking more like Rutger Hauer, so he could be a different actor, but still supposed to be Terry O'Quinn. Ridiculous series, deep cut. You're definitely right.
Yeah, Robert Whitman.
What have you been watching, my man?
So I went back to a constant classic for me, and that is Jimmy Smith's Price of Glory. One of the films that me and my brother used to watch a lot of. We actually had it on VHS. Not really a well-known film. We actually saw it when it was like a small little showing here in Chicago, and then my aunt actually had the VHS because she actually went to showing, and when it came out, she bought it. Jimmy Smith's one of my favorite actors. Love them in NYPD Blue. Love them in Mi Familia. Little roles like that. It's about a father who's like overbearing father with all his kids go into boxing, and basically they go through the trials and tribulations with them. It's got a good cast with John Cena and Clifton Collins Jr. Ron Perlman's also in it. Me and my brother quote this movie a lot just for Ron Perlman alone. We call him by his name in the movie, which is Nick Everson, but which we still do to this day. Me and my brother, whenever we talk about Ron Perlman, it's Nick Everson. It's a good boxing movie. Have you ever seen this one?
Yes, I have. And honestly, out of all these actors on the screen, Jimmy Smits is one of my favorites too. Mm-hmm. If we were ever get the opportunity to meet Jimmy Smits, I would just be smitten with Jimmy Smits. He's honestly, he's really good. And this one, he does a good job too. This was a really good under the radar pick. It has been a long time since I've seen it. So you bringing it back up, I am definitely going to rewatch it here in this upcoming week.
Yeah, if you love a good boxing movie with a little family background story, this is a good one for you. It also has a nice little soundtrack in there, King Kong vibes in there, a bunch of Latino music. It's good little tunes. Waiting for the day there isn't a movie poster and it's just a sign that says porn.
That's what we've been watching.
That's what Sam says in the comments. Sam, you're crazy. And then another film that I watched this week is Public Enemies. The reason it came up was at work. We were talking about The Dark Knight and how it was filmed in Chicago, and then we somehow stumbled on to Public Enemies and how it was filmed in Chicago, and based, of course, on John Dillinger. It's a Johnny Depp vehicle. I actually really enjoyed this film. I remember seeing it at Hollywood Boulevard when it first came out. I'm a huge fan of Johnny Depp's work. I thought this film was a good portrayal. I love timepieces with like early gangster films. I thought he did a really, really good job in here. Christian Bale as well as Milton Purvis. You got like a little cameos of like Channing Tatum as Pretty Boy Floyd, Stephen Graham as Babyface Nelson. All great actors in this film. I totally forgot we're in it. Really, really good film directed by Michael Mann. If you like that kind of like old school 1930s kind of noir films, this is right up your alley. Tony, have you seen this one?
This was one that the very first time I seen it, for some reason, I hated it. And then about 5 years ago, I was just turned it on and I started watching this movie and I go, what am I watching here? And they're like, it's like Public Enemies. And I go, man, was I upset when I saw this movie at the theater? Because I went out and actually bought a copy the next day. And probably one of the last movies I ever actually bought. But even some of the movie was filmed 5 minutes from where I live here too, in this really awesome downtown area. I know it was filmed all over the place, outside of Chicago too. As you stated, really good movie. The way it is, Michael Mann. I mean, again, I'm still trying to remember what I was upset about when I saw it, because Johnny Depp is a great actor for all indication, for being sometimes maybe looked upon as somebody else. But maybe that's what makes him a good actor too. But this movie is, again, one of his, I would put it in his top, in his top arsenal.
Yeah, I would say it is. It's more a serious role for him. The scene
it's often also misunderstood too. I mean, it's never going to be as high as Edward Scissorhands. I wouldn't put it as high as Blow. I like that more than this movie, but this is, I think it's because that movie's a little bit more louder than this movie. But this was a great movie though.
Yeah, and it has like some iconic scenes when they tell him to look, when they have him in the movie theater, and to look to the left and look to your right. If you see this man, everybody does, and they kind of ignore him. And he does that smirk. I thought he did a really good job, and it kind of like showed, the Chicago workers of the mob, and how they kind of didn't want too much heat on them, so they kicked out like Dillinger and all the other people from getting protection. But yeah, good film, a little long. So I can understand what some people might say it's a little long film, but I liked it a lot. But be sure to check it out if you haven't. So that's what we've watched this week. Let us know what you watched over at the Twitters or X or whatever the hell it's called. Let us know on Facebook, or let us know on the YouTube comments, or at our handles, Lil Yumper and at the Sugar Baggy. Tone, we have a guest in waiting. I don't want to keep her waiting long. Let's get to Keelan's cuts, my man.
Let's do it.
Miss Keelin, welcome back.
Hi, thanks for having me. I was dying off camera at all of the movies you guys named off, especially Blind Fury. That has like some of the best one-liners ever.
I had a feeling, I think we talked about it at some point, because very rarely do I meet anyone who talks about Blind Fury, and I was like, I think it was you. And that's why when you were coming on, I was like, I want to rewatch Blind Fury, and I would take a shot. And I guess I was right.
It was good. It was good. Yeah. I think he has a line in there, like Rutger Hauer's like swinging a sword, and he cuts off somebody's eyebrows, and then and he says, I also do circumcision.
Well, actually, right before that scene he does right there that I showed, he's like, the one guy comes over because he can't see, and he's like, I'm going to put some hot sauce on your burrito. And he's like, he can't see it, so he puts it on there, and he eats it, and the guy's like, so what do you think? And he's like, I don't think it's macho enough, and all his buddies that start laughing at him or whatever, and then ridiculous stuff like that.
Wow.
It's good.
You sold me on this movie even more.
I know you're gonna love this movie. I can't wait to hear what you think.
So Keelin, you came up with a film that I have not seen in a very long time. The 1999 film Ravenous, which is directed by Alnea Bird. She did 1994's Priest. She did a film called Face, and then a TV movie called Care. Unfortunately, she passed not too long ago. Movie stars Guy Pearce, Robert Carlyle, David Arquette, Jeremy Davies, Jeffrey Jones, John Spencer, and Neil McDonough. It had a box office of $2 million and a budget of $12 million. Tell us why you picked this film.
Sorry, those numbers are cracking me up. So I picked this film because, like you said, I feel like it's one that kind of gets lost in time. It has a really interesting cast. I mean, there's at least somebody most people, at least of our age or older, will recognize in this film. I do think it's funny Neil McDonough always gets cast as like an army guy. That's like, he's like a character actor, I guess, at this point. But yeah, I think I saw the movie as a child, which is ridiculous. I watched it with my brother, and I've also watched it as an adult, and I think it hit in two ways. So as a kid, I think it was like my first kind of movie that I saw about cannibals that was a horror movie. So that definitely very much stuck with me. And then as an adult, I don't think as a child you pick up on the fact that it's actually also a comedy, because you're mainly just like, oh, these guys are eating each other. So as an adult, I've been able to enjoy it from that perspective, and that it's very funny, while also still being extremely disturbing. So I also like the historical aspect of it as well. So I think this is, it's a story of a guy who basically, during the Mexican-American War, he fakes being dead, and that's how he ends up capturing the enemy's base and gets promoted. And instead of kind of being more prestigious, he's sent out to this like random base in the middle of nowhere. I think it's in like Colorado or somewhere like that, with all these weirdos, basically like a bunch of army rejects. So yeah, lots going on there.
Yeah, it's one of those films that it's more of like a black comedy, I would say. Like a black comedy. It's a horror film, but it's goofy. It's kind of up like the Shaun of the Dead kind of like realm of comedy. Yeah, Guy Pearce is pretty hilarious and such a chicken shit. he really plays dead and then like gets brought over to the Mexican side, takes it over, and then they find out and they send him to, I think it's Nevada. They send him to like as an outcast, and then he has like
you're right. Yeah,
all misfits there. Neil McDonough, who you said is like he's a character actor. He actually does a really, really good role on Suits. He plays a state's attorney. I'm sorry, no, he FCC attorney, and he does a really, really good job in there. He actually becomes one of your favorite characters towards the end of the show. So at least he's getting better roles now.
Yeah, that is good. Yeah, I know. I think the most of the stuff I've seen him is like, why is he always like an army guy? And I think this movie especially is very interesting because, well, spoiler alert, he dies, and pretty much Guy Pearce sits in this pit with him, watching him like actively decompose. And his eyes, like Neil McDonough has crazy blue eyes, and they look so creepy as his body is just like deteriorating. Ugh.
Yeah, pretty crazy stuff. Tone, have you seen this one?
Yes, I always remember the first time I'd seen it was actually going to see the movie The Faculty. This was the trailer that played before, and what I remember really a lot about it was me and a couple friends, and they showed Jeffrey Jones with huge sideburns, and we all started laughing super hard because, of course, we thought of Ferris Bueller and Jeffrey Jones. Well, now Jeffrey Jones, we think of him as something else. But back then, though, very ridiculous performance of him. Very ridiculous performance of David Arquette. I mean, you could really go deep on a couple really, as you know, you mentioned Neil McDonough. Just a great under the radar 1999 pick, because I mean Guy Pearce, he's coming off of right around this time LA Confidential, which is a great movie. So again, he's a good actor. I mean, I haven't really seen off the top of my head anything that he has been bad in. And also, you know, around the same time, you know, you got Memento coming out soon too. Actually, in 2002, I go and see a movie with Guy Pearce called The Count of Monte Cristo. And actually, I only saw it that one time, but I liked that movie that one time I saw it. I've always liked everything he's in. It's a great pick. Robert Carlyle, too, though. Trainspotting, The Beach.
Yeah.
I mean, I just watched The Beach recently. He's pretty good at the beginning of that movie.
Yeah.
Great movie. Great pick.
Yeah. I definitely think Robert Carlyle's my favorite actor in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, by far. He does a nice twist, and I don't know.
Who was the one I remember really when it came out? Guy Pearce still wasn't really, I mean, even though LA Confidential, he wasn't really as known. Carlisle was coming off of like Trainspotting and a couple other things, and they were trying to make him at the forefront, and rightfully so. He did a good job.
Yeah, I think Guy Pearce does a really, really good job of selling being a coward, which seems like it wouldn't be that hard, but I don't know. He pulls it off because he really makes me just like, in this movie, you know? Like, he's very sniveling, and you feel bad for him because, I mean, he went through some stuff, but yeah, it's good.
The crazy thing is, Key, when I was doing research for this, they said that this film is loosely based on the Donner Party disaster of 1847. And when I went to go read about that, it says that we're a group of American pioneers who migrated to California in a wagon trail from the Midwest. Delayed by a multitude of mishaps, they spent the winter of 1846 to 1847 snowbound in Sierra Nevada. Some of the migrants resorted to cannibalism to survive, mainly eating the bodies of those who have succumbed to starvation, sickness, or extreme cold. But in one case, 2 Native American guides were murdered for this purpose.
Jeez.
It's pretty depressing.
It's depressing. Yeah, I feel like sorry, I just saw Sam's comments. Yeah, I think that's the basis for a lot of like Western type horror, just because that was such a big story. I think Hateful Eight also sort of pulled from the same thing and has a similar vibe in a way. But yeah, it's super creepy. And yeah, I think the idea in this of eating the flesh to grow stronger is just like, all right.
Well, they followed the Native American folklore, which out of respect, well, I won't say the name, but you can look it up. It starts with W. It basically means that you eat your flesh for your enemies and gain their power. But yeah, when I remember watching this, and I was like, "What?" And then I started doing a deep dive reading about that, and that's all creepy stuff too. So it's a nice little tale of superstition and comedy and horror all bundled into one. I actually really like this film. I'm glad you brought it up because I haven't seen it. When you texted me it to me, I'm like, damn, I haven't seen that movie in a long time. You can actually buy it on Prime for $5. So that's what I did to rewatch it.
Nice. I'm sure you'll revisit it too. You know, it's a big Jeffrey Jones time.
Big time for everyone looking into his catalog, seeing what he was up to.
Yeah, they're like, what happened to the dad from Beetlejuice?
Oh, Ravenous. That's right. Him with the sideburns. I loved him in that one.
Yeah.
Really good.
He'll always be the guy from Stay Tuned to me. The devil.
Oh, Stay Tuned. Jeffrey Jones. Mom and Dad Save the World.
Oh yeah, I just saw a trailer for that today. It's kind of funny.
Jeffrey Jones. You know he's great in actually is he's really great in Easy Money with Rodney Dangerfield.
Oh wow, I've never seen that. That sounds
he's like what he is he's like his wife's mother-in-law's like butler who like carries around her bags. He's like really thin, like it's a couple years before Ferris Bueller, but again he's got a look that Amadeus too.
Deadwood.
Oh yeah, Amadeus is great. Well, he's good in it.
I don't know if you've ever seen this ridiculous movie with real quick with John Candy, Who's Harry Crumb? He's
Yeah.
in that movie, but again, why are we talking so much about this?
Well, my brother would not be happy if I didn't mention that he's Mr. Shank in the Pest.
Oh yes,
Yeah. Did you say Devil's Advocate? I mean,
he's great.
Yeah,
Eddie Barzoom, he's great in that movie.
Yeah, he touched a lot of movies, unfortunately.
Yeah,
that's not what I meant. Never mind. Should have reworded that.
Yes. No. Good pick, Key. What's some of your favorite parts of this film?
Yeah, I think so. I'm like favorite. How should I phrase this? There are a few things that stand out to me. I think the entire like opening sequence is really interesting, and it's so different than the rest of the movie. But I think it does a really good job without explaining too much of kind of giving you a sense of doom or dread. Like I think there's a part where they're having this dinner post after all he's done his war stuff, and they just put down like pretty much what looks like a raw slab of meat in front of him, and he goes outside and throws up. And I think like just that shot is really, really interesting. He really gets a point across. Definitely foreshadowing. I think that's interesting. And then I think, I'm like, should I share spoilers? Yeah, this is a 1999 movie. Sorry. Yeah, the part where you find out that what's his name? I'm blanking on his name right now, but you find out Robert Carlyle is a cannibal. Pretty much is also very like chaotic and interesting. And then just the whole fallout from that, where, like I said, Guy Pearce is stuck in this hole with a rotting Neil McDonough. I mean, like I said, that's like a formative horror movie memory for me because it was just so disturbing. And yeah, I think seeing Robert Carlyle come back and appear again is just like, oh crap. And he's all cleaned up, so he was this like weirdo doing like weird stuff before, and then he comes back as a figure that's kind of like believable. But yeah, I think that's a nice twist.
Also, like just looking at the poster for the film, it doesn't show you anything that would resemble like it's a timepiece movie.
Yeah, not at all. It looks like very much like a 1999 horror movie poster.
I was unaware until I rewatched it and was reading that Damon Albarn of Gorillaz does the soundtrack to this.
Oh, that's cool.
The instrumentals and all the music, like, which includes like banjos and different squeeze boxes and jaw harps and violins, like, so it gives it that feel for what you're looking for in this movie. I think it adds to the background vibe.
Yeah, he's awesome. In his Blur era.
Oh yeah, definitely.
That's the big subject right now: Blur or Oasis.
So I picked a timely soundtrack for us. Look at this.
You did.
Yes, all comes together, Keelin. Great minds think alike.
I totally chose that on purpose for that reason.
No, great pick, Keelin. We love having you on, especially when it comes to horror stuff. We'll definitely be having you on more because we have a special month coming up next month.
The best month.
Yes.
Yes.
And you are like our horror consigliere, so.
Dang, I need that on like a shirt or a badge or something. A hat.
We're getting it made currently. Make that. Get that over there. Go. They're in the background. They got it.
Yes. A sash.
Is there anything you want to plug before we let you go?
Yeah, it's towards the end of the baseball season, but I am still writing injury reports for Razzball. You can just search my name on razzball.com, RAZZBALL. So if you do fantasy leagues and you're still finishing up your fantasy baseball league, go there, check my article. You just search my name, and you'll find people that are injured and who you could replace them with. Pretty exciting stuff.
It really is. So this is the time.
Wow. Wow.
How do you do that magic?
Thank you, Keelin. We'll have you on soon again.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for having me. This is always so fun.
A lot of fun.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye. That was a great film to pick.
Amazing
Like,
pick.
I haven't
Amazing.
seen that in so long, and when she picked it, I laughed out loud because I'm like, oh my god, this is great.
Oh, it's not one you see every day, and that's why I like the pick. I mean, everything we've talked about so far. I mean, we've talked about Fifth Element.
Mhm.
You know, that was a good pick. I mean, just a lot of good picks. She's always going to come up with great picks.
Yeah, for those who are watching on the YouTube, my son came down here to talk to me, and I did not know because my headphones are noise canceling. And I turned to my right, and he scared the shit out of me.
Ah!
But that is Keelin's Cuts. Be sure to check her out. She'll be dropping more Keelin's Cut stuff. She'll be writing for us soon once she gets her busy schedule taken care of with Razzball and baseball. That's a real big grind there. But Keelin's always a good go-to for horror films and to talk movies in general. But let's get to the main event. We're going to get to our big deep dive with the 1993 film Jurassic Park. When was the first time you actually seen the film?
When was the first time I actually seen this film? Was at it was opening weekend. It was at River Oaks, the prime movie theater that I would go to in Calumet City, Illinois. And honestly, it was me and my parents, and I think my sister was there, and we went. And what I remember mostly of all was, of course, the movie itself was amazing. Walked out amazed for many reasons. I mean, this is coming out, and when it's coming out, there's nothing like this movie at all. And that's, I think, what makes it, I think that's what makes it very, very awesome is that, and me, myself, I'm 11 years old when this comes out. So imagine being 11 years old, seeing this on the big screen. Most thing I remember is what's hilarious, and now we're in the era of designer popcorn buckets. I remember my father getting the designer Jurassic Park popcorn bucket, and what was cool was what was that is it had really cool hieroglyphics on it, so that was really, 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 really cool. Very, very cool. I'm laughing here because I'm trying to read Sam's stuff here. He's talking about Weird Al Yankovic. When you brought up to me and you said, "What? Let's do this." This is the first thing I always think about when I think about Jurassic Park.
Jurassic Park is frightening in the dark. All the dinosaurs are running.
Which was the name of Weird Al's album that came out this year, Alapalooza, which he had a song called Jurassic Park. But those are the things that make me remember and think of Jurassic Park. What about you, Yum?
I actually saw this film in theaters as well. We saw it at the Quarry. My dad took me on a weekend to go see it, and I remember just these incredibly loud sounds from the Tyrannosaurus Rex walking to like the roaring. It was like awesome. I was 8 at the time, so I was super, super pumped to watch this movie. And it kind of like rekindled my love for dinosaurs. I mean, every kid was kind of loving dinosaurs, but this kind of rekindled my love for it. To the point where I actually go see every Jurassic Park, the new one to get released to this day because of this one film.
Really quick off topic. Did you grow up around the Orland Park area?
No, I actually grew up on the south side of Chicago.
Okay.
But
at Orland Mall around the same time when this movie came out, it was really cool. They had it would come once a year. It was like a traveling animatronic dinosaurs they would have like throughout the mall that would like move real cool. I just remember that. I was curious if you were around.
Yeah, I remember them having them, but I don't think I've ever saw them. I know they had the animatronic of the T-Rex actually in the Field Museum for a little bit before Sue came there. Sam says this film is as old as me. Weird to think about it since it's aged really, really well, and I've aged like milk. Oh. Sam, you aged like fine wine, Mr. Ass. But Tone, let's get into the development of this one, huh?
Let's do it.
thoughts, I use the technique of positive visualization.
There was in Jurassic Park, the first Jurassic Park, you know, actors want to protect their, it's not bad. After having told this story on myself, it's
Jeff Goldblum, national treasure right there. So the film was developed. It's based off, of course, a story or a novel by Michael Crichton, who originally conceived a screenplay about a graduate student who recreates a dinosaur. It's not Billy and the Clonosaurus from The Simpsons, but it's the graduate student that creates a dinosaur. He continued to wrestle with his fascination with dinosaurs and cloning until he began writing a novel called Jurassic Park. Before its publication, Steven Spielberg learned of the novel in October 1989 while he was discussing a screenplay with Crichton that would become the television series ER. So Spielberg kind of had the upper hand in finding out about this coming out. He recognized what fascinated him, that's Spielberg, about Jurassic Park was that it was a really credible look to how dinosaurs might someday be brought back alongside modern mankind, going beyond a simple monster movie. Michael Crichton's Jurassic Park was a huge draw even before its release, with multiple studios fighting for the rights. Universal Studios, with the backing of Spielberg, acquired the film for $1.5 million in 1990, ahead of the novel's publication. And this is something that Crichton was very notorious in saying, that he will not. He wanted $2 million for the film, for the rights, before it was even the damn novel was released. So he is getting paid because he knew it was going to be a hit. Like I said, Crichton himself was paid an additional $500,000 to adapt the novel for the screen, although the screenplay was later rewritten by David Cope. The adaptation process required significant changes as Spielberg opted to reduce much of the novel's explosion and violence to create a more focused and family-friendly film. I don't know if you call a film family-friendly when dinosaurs are eating people, but the funny thing is, James Cameron actually stated that he wanted to direct this film, but the rights were bought out a few hours before he could bid. Upon seeing this film, Cameron realized that Steven Spielberg was the better choice to direct it, as his version would have been much more violent aliens with dinosaurs, which would have been fair to children who relate to dinosaurs. The visual effects were directly influenced by Cameron's Terminator 2 Judgment Day film in 1991. So they're still kind of playing off each other, even though he didn't get to direct it. While Spielberg was always attached to direct when the film was bought, other notable directors were considered before the final decision. Warner Brothers, who was trying to bid, had Tim Burton attached to the pitch. Columbia Pictures proposed Richard Donner, and Fox had Joe Dante in mind. However, Spielberg, who had a close relationship with Universal, had a proven track record with blockbusters like Jaws and E.T., so he became the definitive choice when they took over and got the rights. So we have our director, we have the film that has been the story of how it's been made up. Now let's get to the casting, and let's go to like the main character in this film, and that's Dr. Alan Grant. We know that Sam Neill was eventually cast, but Dr. Alan Grant was modeled after paleontologist Jack Horner, who, like Grant, digs and teaches in Montana and was also a technical advisor on this movie. People who considered this role were actually two really, really big actors. Harrison Ford, for one, was considered, and he rejected due to time constraints, and he didn't really get the script that well. William Hurt was considered as well, and he rejected. Another actor that was considered was Tim Robbins, who was actually offered the role, and he rejected it. Kurt Russell and Richard Dreyfuss were considered by the studio, but they were considered to be too expensive for this film, which this film had a $63 million budget. So that's it's pretty crazy that they thought they were too expensive.
Mr. Holland's Opus, come on.
Yeah. And Jack Burton fighting dinosaurs, come on. The final decision was to cast Sam Neill, who was cast just weeks before the filming began. Although not the original choice, Neill's portrayal of the character became iconic, blending toughness with vulnerability as Grant faces the awe and terror of dinosaurs. I think Sam Neill being cast is probably the perfect choice. I I would like to see how the other people would have done, but Dr. Alan Grant will always be Sam Neill to me.
I think the only one out of all those that really maybe could have pulled it off, maybe William Hurt. Because again, he isn't like this big, huge star. I think the role called for like an under the radar guy who is a great actor, but maybe he's not like, Sam Neill's awesome because he's in, so many other awesome movies that, aren't, not to say that Harrison Ford are in some of the greatest movies, but more under the cover type movies is what I mean.
Yeah. Sam Neill, Event Horizon, man. Come on.
That's where I was going. And then I kept trying to say Fifth Element, and I was like, I couldn't just wrap it up into something else. So you actually helped me there. Thank you.
No problem, my man. Then for the role of Dr. Ian Malcolm, we know that the role eventually went to Jeff Goldblum, but people who were considered for the role and possibly rejected for it was really surprising to me because there was a comedian by the name of Jim Carrey who auditioned for the part. Carrey was known for his comedic talent, given a strong audition for the film, but filmmakers felt that Jeff Goldblum was better and were committed to him. The final decision, Jeff Goldblum, of course, was cast as Spielberg's top choice, and his performance was as the eccentric, witty, and philosophical Malcolm became a fan favorite. His deadpan humor and memorable one-liners are now part of pop culture. I don't think Jeff Goldblum was acting. I think he was just playing Jeff Goldblum because that's how he is in all his interviews. It's kind of like out there. But Keelin says that this is a role that she cannot picture anybody but Jeff Goldblum in it. It's true. But you could kind of see how Jim Carrey is kind of typecast as a comedian, and now he's like known as a real actor because he has really good acting chops. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotted Mind, films like that have kind of The Majestic have kind of like branched him out. But this is like his earlier in his career, so unfortunately he wasn't cast. But good that Jeff Goldblum was cast.
It was.
The next role was for Dr. Ellie Sattler, who of course was cast by Laura Dern. You know who her dad is?
Bruce, the great Bruce Dern.
Bruce Dern. For the role, Ellie Sattler, a paleobotanist and Alan Grant's partner, Spielberg considered a few actresses, though none of them have really been publicly discussed. Although he did talk to certain people, they kept it kind of like on their wraps of who he was talking to. But he did see a film called Rambling Rose, and he saw Laura Dern in a film that earned her an Oscar nomination, and he thought that she blew him away in terms of the way she acted, and he wanted her for this film, so he cast her as Ellie.
That was very, very, very great casting. I love Laura Dern.
Yep. Sam says Nepo baby. For John Hammond, the role cast was Richard Attenborough, who was a great actor in his own right and director. He directed the 1982 film Gandhi. The role of John Hammond was a visionary but misguided founder of Jurassic Park, was played by veteran actor Richard Attenborough. Before Attenborough, it was rumored that Spielberg considered other actors, one of them being Sir Sean Connery. He was offered the role of John Hammond based on his performance as Professor Henry Jones Sr. in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, but he turned it down. The character of John Hammond is different from his novel counterpart. In Michael Crichton's book, Hammond is portrayed as a darker figure with more overly capitalistic and ruthless personality. He was supposed to be the evil Walt Disney, is what Crichton described him as. However, Spielberg envisioned him as a more sympathetic character for the film. He cast Attenborough, an acclaimed British director and actor who stepped away from acting to focus on directing films like Gandhi that we just mentioned. Spielberg convinced Attenborough to return to acting for Jurassic Park. It was 12 years since his last acting gig, and he did it for this one. I couldn't see anybody else playing John Hammond in this role. I really love Richard Attenborough, and I was kind of happy that he got cast for this. What about you, Tom?
Oh, I love Richard Attenborough too. He's a great director. Great horror movie directed in the late 70s called Magic with Anthony Hopkins. But I imagine this John Hammond on the set, Richard Attenborough on the set of that movie, not the one that was probably a lot younger, because he's so he's supposed to be mean, but I always, he seems nice too. He's very nice in this movie too.
Yes, he is. For the roles of Tim and Lex Murphy, the roles cast Joseph Mazzello as Tim and Arena Richards as Lex. Consider for these roles, Spielberg originally considered Joseph Mazzello for his role in his previous film Hook, but Mazzello was deemed too young at the time, so Spielberg promised to cast him in a future project, leading for him to get this role as Tim Murphy, John Cameron's grandson. For the role of Lex, Steven Spielberg considered Judith Barcy for the role of Lex. And for those who don't know who Judith Barcy is, she was one of the voices from A Land Before Time. Unfortunately, he was shocked to find out that she was actually murdered by her father in 1988, which is it's just a sad story. And she was not available, of course. It's kind of crazy that he didn't even know that she wasn't. This is before pre-internet, guys. It's just horrible, her story. But yeah, that's really depressing. I'm sorry. She was Ducky. So
that's crazy. I didn't even know that.
Yeah. Anna Chelminsky, who is from My Girl, and Christina Ricci also auditioned for the role of Lex Murphy. But for the final decision, Arena Richards was chosen after a competitive audition process. Her role as Tim's older sister, with a mixture of courage and vulnerability, helped bring a sense of realism to the character's interactions with the dinosaur. He also loved the fact that she could scream, basically put her mindset into where she's terrified and scream with nothing in front of her. And that kind of sold him on she was the right choice. And of course, she does the famous scream with the T-Rex later. But that kind of sold him off to keeping her as Lex. So for the role of Donald Gennaro, the lawyer, the role was cast to Martin Ferrero. The role of the awkward, cowardly Donald Gennaro was played by Martin Ferrero, though there were no reports of other actors considered for this part. Ferrero's performance helped inject moments of dark humor into the intense action sequences, which he did, especially his death scene.
True.
For the choice of Dennis Nedry, they cast a guy by the name of Newman, aka Wayne Knight.
Hello, Newman.
Wayne Knight was already known for his role in Seinfeld as Newman, and he was cast as Dennis Nedry, the scheming computer programmer who sets disaster in motion. Spielberg reportedly picked Newman after Newman. I called him Newman. He picked Knight after watching his performance in the 1992 film Basic Instinct. Bob Peck was cast as Robert Muldoon, the game warden. Peck, a British actor, was chosen for his stoic and rugged demeanor, which worked well in a role as the dinosaur expert who meets his end at the hands of the velociraptors. Muldoon was actually one of my favorite characters in this film when I was a kid.
All right. That's a good job in this movie, too.
B.D. Wong portrayed Dr. Henry Wu, the genetrist, as I don't know if I say that, if I'm saying that incorrectly, the doctor, let's call him that, behind the creation of the dinosaurs, the scientist, let's say. Wong's role in Jurassic Park was relatively small, but expanded in later sequels, particularly in Jurassic World. Yeah, his role in the book is actually very big, but in the film, it's small, and we'll touch on why that happened. So that is the main characters for the cast. We also have a guy by the name of Mr. Arnold, played by some guy named Samuel L. Jackson. But he is more of a minor role in the film. One of the biggest things about the film and development of the film is the score, Tone. And we know we have legendary composer John Williams. What are some of your favorite John Williams scores?
Oh, I mean, you could just say Jaws off the top of your head, and that's one of his best. I mean, but he's got a lot, even some more under the radar type ones that he has done. But some of my personal favorites, Close Encounters of the Third Kind is a really, really good one. I mean, all of his work really with Spielberg, if you go into some more Star Wars, of course. I actually, probably one of my favorites has to be Home Alone. I mean, when you listen to the Home Alone music, especially at Christmas time, it's some of the best. One of the best composers of all time.
Yes. He's won 5 Oscars and a legendary composer. Still going, man. He's what He's in his, I think, his 80s, if I'm mistaken. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
he's 87,
to
80.
work with Alfred Hitchcock, De Palma, Clint Eastwood, Spielberg. I mean, you're working with the best.
I'm sorry, I misspoke. He is 92. Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
it's-
He is up there. Yeah, he legendary composer. Williams aimed to create a musical landscape that reflected both the awe-inspiring beauty and the underlying menace of the resurrected dinosaurs. He composed several themes to represent different elements and characters within the film. One of them, of course, being the main theme that Tony loves to sing. The other being a theme for the T-Rex. The motif is more intense and foreboding, utilizing lower brass and percussion to build a suspense and signal danger. The theme for the Raptors, a faster, more aggressive tone. And then Ellie's theme, a softer, more melodic piece associated with Dr. Ellie Sattler. You hear that mostly when she's crying over the ice cream. He recorded it with a orchestra, the Boston Symphony Orchestra, to be exact. He had strings, brass, woodwinds, of course, percussion, and synthesizers. Some of his innovative techniques were to mirror the film's blend of natural beauty and technological advancement. The use of Leitmotifs helped in storytelling, allowing the music to guide the audience emotional responses and highlight key narrative moments. This score and the theme from Jurassic Park is very, very recognizable. If you hear it, you know exactly where it's from, unless you've never seen the film. But it is iconic.
I mean, as a movie fan at this point, I mean, you've had to have heard the soundtrack. If not, I'm going to give it to you. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to sing it again. But it's really one of the best. And as it's crazy how I was almost used the term undated, but not dated the movie looks, really. I could watch a movie that came out in 99 or even 98, and like that Alien Resurrection, there's a scene where the alien's underwater and it's swimming. It looks so bad. But this, which predates that, he did a great job.
Yes, definitely. So that is our film development. We went through the cast, the director, how the film was, conceived, if you want to say, how it came from Michael Crichton and went to Spielberg and all these other great, directors try to get it in studios. It's very, very interesting deep dive on that part. I was very surprised to find about how many studios had their directors kind of lined up if they won the part and won the rights. And then unfortunately for them, they didn't. You ready to get into the film breakdown, my man?
Let's do it.
See the arc? He starts down here. He ends up here. Where's my arc, Paulie?
So the film opens with probably a scene that I'm not gonna lie, I laughed at in the theater. It is them transferring a raptor, and they're at night transferring a raptor from its cage into, I guess, loading it into the park. It's like it runs into the cage, the containment cage, opens it, and the guy falls down, and the raptor starts basically eating him. The game warden goes to try to grab him and hold him while he's telling all the other people to basically shoot her.
Shoot her!
And you hear the guy literally dying in the end, and they do a dramatic thing of where his hand slips out of the game warden's his arm, and you can only assume that he was killed. Muldoon sees him basically go bye-bye. And Spielberg originally shot the scene to set a suspenseful tone right from the start. The decision to have the attack partially obscured was made to build intrigue and avoid showing too much too soon. The mechanical raptor's arm was an early example of the blend of practical effects and animatronics used throughout the film. What do you think of this whole little opening scene, Tony?
Oh, I mean, as you stated, it's classic hilarity. When you look back at it, I remember being in the theater though and being like, what is it? Kind of gives me the same vibes as Independence Day, where I was like, what am I getting into? I don't know what these dinosaurs are going to do. The trailers I had seen didn't really allude to much, but now as I'm older, I find the humor in it, like you stated.
Yeah, it just
And that
cracks me up,
name
though.
Meldoon, I keep
Yeah,
just saying Meldoon a lot. I like
yeah.
saying that.
Raptus. Hurry up now. The way he talks. We then cut to a Montana dig site where we see Dr. Alan Grant and Dr. Ellie Sattler are digging and they find a raptor. And Dr. Grant is going through, they basically shot like a shockwave x ray, which brought me back to Tremors for this. But it actually gave a picture on their great great box TV showing the actual skeleton, and he's explaining to it, and a kid comes out and starts calling it a 6-foot turkey, to which Grant decides to scare the shit out of him.
And he slashes at you with this 6-inch retractable claw, like a razor, on the middle toe. He doesn't bother to bite your jugular like a lion, say. No. He slashes at you here, or here. Or maybe across the belly, spilling your intestines. The point is, you are alive when they start to eat you. So, try to show a little respect.
Okay.
Yeah, the that scene is also rather hilarious because the kid's like, "Oh, it's just a 6-foot turkey," but the actor playing the boy is not named, but it's actually a pretty famous line from the film when he says that. He's just cracking up in the comments with the little kid has a punchable face. Um, Jack Horner, as we explained earlier with the real paleontologist, was a consultant to ensure that the scientific dialogue that Alan gives in the film is accurate. And I think they do a really, really good job, especially when he explains the pelvic bones and how it's related to birds. And that's why he eventually gets called a 6-foot turkey, because he says, "I wonder how come these guys can't fly," and everybody starts laughing. And then going forward, they're finding that most dinosaurs actually had feathers. It's crazy.
What's crazy is I just realized that Jack Horner is also the name of Boogie Nights. Burt Reynolds. So you've been saying that, and I've been like, is his name different in Boogie Nights? And I finally just looked it up, and I'm like, wait a minute. And then I was checking the notes. I'm like, nope, they're both Jack Horner. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I thought that too when I was reading it.
Pretty awesome.
So as they walk away from scaring the shit out of this little kid, they are met by a helicopter coming down while they're in the trailer, and it starts covering the bones with dust. And when they go out to tell the helicopter to turn off, they go back in and they see this old ass man, the appearance of John Hammond, comes in, and he's drinking their champagne, proposing to them that he has a park that might be right up their alley.
Well, you're kind not to put too fine a point on it. I mean, let's face it, in your particular field, you're the top minds. And if I could just persuade you to sign off on the park, get your endorsement, maybe even pen a wee testimonial, I could get back on schedule.
Why would they care what we think?
What kind of park is this? It's right up your alley.
That scene always cracks me up when he's like, "Hey, we were saving that for this day." Sure. That always made me laugh. Like, I'm like, why is he like drinking their stuff? But yeah, John Hammond is supposed to be a lovable character in this film, and of course in the book he's a ruthless bastard. But Spielberg wanted to have him more of a grandfather approach and like lovable. What do you think of this opening scene of seeing John Hammond in it?
As you just said, lovable grandpa. Where is he going to take us? He seems to know something cool that we don't know. That's how I felt.
Yeah, definitely. And then we cut to Costa Rica, a Costa Rica cafe, which happens to be one of my favorite scenes in the film. We see a very large Dennis Nedry eating some food in a Hawaiian shirt, and he is approached by a guy named Dotson.
You shouldn't use my name.
Dodson! Dodson! We've got Dodson here! See, nobody cares. Nice hat.
Wayne Knight is so hilarious the way he calls him. It's like, guys, like, you shouldn't use my real name. He's like, we got Dotson here. He's like, nobody cares. Basically, we were going over learning that Nedry is actually going to do a double cross to Hammond or the engine company and steal embryos. And he is given a real cool little device to steal the embryos in, and that is of a Barbasol can with a container on the bottom that will keep the embryos cool. Now, if you're watching on the YouTube channel, I just showed the 30th anniversary Barbasol's can prop they had, which is pretty cool. Go ahead, Tom.
Very cool. I was just gonna say I always liked that as a kid, seeing the way they were able to sneak that in there.
Yeah, my son's padrina, his godmother, and her wife, huge fans of this film. She is a really, really huge fan, my son's godmother, of this film. Her wife actually proposed to her with the Barbasol can. The ring was actually in the bottom.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Which I thought was really cool. But yeah, every time when I see that film, I think of them too, because it's like, oh wow, yeah, 'cause she's huge. Jurassic Park is like right up her alley. She loves this film.
Cool.
The scene between Nedry and Dotson has spawned a cult following. There are fan recreations on YouTube and electro tunes sampling the line, "We got Dotson here." There are even T-shirts with Dotson's face on it. Cameron Thor auditioned for the part of Ian Malcolm, but got the much smaller role of Lewis Dotson. Thor was one of the two people who tracked down the shaving cream for use in the film. He had to spend endless time in a drugstore to find the most photogenic can. He even used it after the audition because he was so broke. Pretty crazy, but he's iconic for that role, which is kind of funny. We then cut to where they're going to the helicopter ride to Issa Nublar, which is in the islands, and they're flying around. They're going through that. They're basically meeting Ian Malcolm, the lawyer is there, Gennaro, the lawyer. There is some foreshadowing in this film as they experience. Look at him toweling off. Poor Dino was tired. Yeah, he was. There is some foreshadowing in this scene.
This is a lot of animal abuse. They don't really talk about it much, what's going on in this. But
yeah, if you guys are watching the YouTube, Tony has a picture of the T-Rex being toweled down on his head, which is kind of funny. And Sam says they look like they're toweling off the T-Rex after seeing poor Dino was tired. But as they're landing, Tone, there's a little foreshadowing here because everybody's basically buckling up for the turbulence, and Ian has two female connectors for the seatbelt, and he ties them together, which is foreshadowing that all the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park are female. I don't know if anybody caught that. The only reason I caught it was because I did research for it, but it makes me laugh now that it is done. Jeff Goldblum, of course, is introduced in this scene, and he's talking about chaos theory. He constantly talks about the chaos theory with his loud voice and eccentric behavior. You kind of get a little piece of that, and he can't help but hit on Laura Dern's character of Ellie Sattler in this film, and he'll hit on her more as we go. We then cut to when they're driving to the facility, the main facility. They encounter a brontosaurus, and we see it go, with the herd. It's eating, leaves, and we hear the most famous line that Tony loves with the music.
Dr. Grant, my dear Dr. Sattler, welcome to Jurassic Park.
Probably the most famous line from this film. John Hammond was big into Girl on Girl. Yes, he was. This was the first time Spielberg combined live action actors with CGI in broad daylight. The practical and digital effects had to be carefully choreographed to ensure realism. Spielberg wanted the audience to experience the same awe the characters were feeling. The sounds made by the brontosauruses were a combination of whale and donkey songs. The Welcome to Jurassic Park line by Sir Richard Attenborough was his favorite line. And the Brontosaurus chewing food, something they never really did, was added to make them look more docile, like a cow chewing their cud. Also, they had limited vocal capabilities, but were given whale song, donkey calls, and penguin noises. Shout out to the penguins to make them sound more of a melody. It's pretty funny, man. The stuff they used.
It is.
We then see them go to the visiting center, and we see them meet this guy by the name of Mr. DNA, who Lori has a tattoo of. Lori being my son's godmother. Told her she's a huge fan of this film. Mr. DNA is rather hilarious. We see him go through how they basically created the dinosaurs, and the reason this little video is shown is because there's a lot of stuff in the book that basically tells about the process of creating them, and Spielberg basically cut all that out into a 5-minute little video. I love the fact that when they just break out of the ride. Yeah, I was about to say that, Sam, when he's like, how do you get out of this? And he's like, it's kind of like a ride. And he just breaks out, and they see the dinosaurs in the little habitat. And we hear one of Malcolm's most famous lines when they're looking at it.
It's not possible. Listen, if there's one thing the history of evolution has taught us, it's that life will not be contained. Life breaks free, it expands to new territories, and it crashes through barriers painfully, maybe even dangerously, but, well, there it is. There it is.
You're implying that a group composed entirely of female animals will breed?
No, I'm simply saying that life finds a way.
Probably his most famous line in Jurassic Park. After we see them going to see the raptor being born from the egg, I always thought that scene was kind of funny. He's like, push. He's like, I'm always here to see them being born. And I'm like, wow, that's kind of weird. But they go see the raptor, and they again see the game warden, who Tony loves his name. Tony, what's his name? The game warden?
Oh man, now you know. It's Muldoon.
Yeah, Muldoon.
And
he's talking about how the raptors are very smart. They can test out the electric fences. They're testing it for weaknesses. They have to be fed now through basically having a contraption open up and basically lower their food. And which they're doing here, they're feeding it a cow. All the raptors are kept in a small pen near the visitor center. However, things that Robert Muldoon says hints that the raptors weren't really always kept in the pen, nor that it is their permanent place, as he states, 50, 60 miles per hour if we ever got them in the open. She's the reason we have to feed them like this. She had them all attacking the fence when feeders came. At a later moment, a computer screen shows that the electric fences fall off. The computer screen shows the position of a raptor paddock. The enclosure in the movie is narrower than most of the other enclosures. The paddock is surrounded by other paddocks. In the nest scene, Alan Grant and children discover a dinosaur nest at a tree trunk. Some of the fans think this scene took place in the raptor paddock, and that is a raptor's nest. This is highly supported by the shape of the babies and the tracks leaving the nest. And the raptor hatching scene was improvised with somebody holding the egg at first. Push. But yeah, Muldoon is hilarious.
When you do that, it sounds like I am not amused.
Yeah.
That scene, push.
Yeah, push. He's a robot. He could have helped it.
That's what I'm saying.
We also see them have lunch, and they again, Hammond has brought the scientists and the paleontologists there to support having this park and sign off on it, while the lawyer is there to basically go against it. And we kind of get a reversal of roles. We get him asking Dr. Grant and Sadler, why they will go against him.
How can we possibly have the slightest idea what to expect. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. You're meant to come down here and defend me against these characters, and the only one I've got on my side is the blood-sucking lawyer. Thank you.
Money changes minds, Sam. Yep, money does change minds. Basically, the lawyer is all about the money, and unfortunately, the scientists believe there are, drawbacks to this. Tone. I do kind of like that play that you would think the scientists would be the paleontologists would be all for it, and they're like, no, we're not all for this.
Yeah. Oh no, you're right.
Which I thought was pretty good writing actually by the screenwriter David Cope. We then see the meeting of Tim and Lex, and Grant is not used because he does not like children. We see a really funny little couple scenes where Tim follows Grant around and talks to him about his book. He totally reminded me of my son because my son does that with anything he learns. He wants to talk about it forever. But it was really funny. We see them go into these Ford Explorers that are on a track with kind of like a safari kind of colors, like green safari colors on them, painted for Jurassic Park. And then they go on a track and basically see the dinosaurs. We see that there are a couple bugs happening, before they get sent off. And we see the first appearance and interaction between John Hammond and Dennis Nedry.
Car batteries. Item 151 on today's glitch list. We have all the problems of a major theme park and a major zoo, and the computers aren't even on their feet yet.
Dennis, our lives are in your hands and you have butterfingers?
I'm totally unappreciated in my time.
That whole playback, and they we eventually hear that Hammond tells them that he doesn't hold people accountable for their mistakes, but expects them to pay for them or hold it against them. So there is a backstory that isn't really elaborated on between the two in the film, but they can tell that they don't like each other, and Nedry is kind of needed, and it's just a horrible workman boss employee relationship. Sam said it sounds like my boss when he asked me to do a simple task. Yeah, it's true. It could be. But we hear them getting ready for the tour, and they're like, just let the tour go. He'll debug the headlights later. And we hear this famous line from Samuel L. Jackson.
Hold on to your butts.
Which is probably a line that just keeps being said by that character of Mr. Arnold, which I thought was rather hilarious. The automated tour vehicle was modified by Ford Explorer, which later became a key part of merchandise and promotional material. The film subtly hints at the park's artificiality and unpredictability of all live animals by having the dinosaurs not cooperate. Now, remember, when they're going on this, they try to look at the Dilophosaurus, and then they eventually go to the Tyrannosaurus, and none of them appear.
What's gonna happen to them? He's gonna eat the goat? Excellent.
So they try to draw it out with a goat, and the T-Rex does not want to come out. And even Alan says the T-Rex doesn't want to be fed; he wants to hunt, which shows that the animals are not going to cooperate. Shortly after Nedry makes his first appearance in the control room, during the argument with Hammond, one can clearly see Jaws playing in a small video window on one of Nedry's computer screens. That movie was, of course, directed by Steven Spielberg, and Spielberg's first experiment with animatronic animals, namely the giant shark. You can also see Oppenheimer, a picture of Oppenheimer on his computer, which I thought was pretty interesting. And according to David Coep, the famous "Hold on to your butts" catchphrase spoken by Samuel L. Jackson was actually inspired by Robert Zemeckis when they were working on Death Becomes Her in 1992. And he had a good sense to jot it down immediately and use it.
Very interesting.
So as you can see, there are no dinosaurs showing up. And we get a very, very funny interaction with Ian Malcolm and John Hammond.
Now, eventually, you do plan to have dinosaurs on your dinosaur tour, right? Hello? Hello? Yes?
I really hate that man.
And it's kind of funny because after they cut from that scene, that shot, Ian like kind of backs up from the camera and he's like laughing his ass off because he knows he's just doing it to be a dick on purpose. But during this scene, also this whole sequence, Ian starts to flirt again with Dr. Sadler by showing her the chaos theory and dropping water pellets on her. And while this is going on, Grant hears these noises coming out, like, and then he sees a Tyrannosaurus Rex, and he actually leaves the car. And that's when Muldoon's like, I told you we needed automatic locks on the cars. Which I'm like, why wouldn't you have the locks on the cars? You have dinos. The kids could still run to the fence if they get out of the car, which makes no sense. But it is a movie. The funny thing is that even though Malcolm was flirting with Dern in the film, they actually would meet on this movie, and the two began a romantic relationship to where they were engaged for 2 years before breaking up. They go and they see a sick Tyrannosaurus, a Triceratops, and we get another famous line from Malcolm here.
That is one big pile of shit.
Where we see the giant poop that the Triceratops has. But apparently it didn't smell at all. It was made of clay, mud, and straw. It was drizzled in honey and papayas, so flies would swarm near it.
Oh, nice.
So I guess that's good. The Triceratops scene was a major operation. Most of the dinosaur scenes were shot on sound stages, but Steven Spielberg wanted this shot on location in Hawaii. The puppeteers loved this decision because the dust and the dirt tied into the environment. It was also the first dinosaur that actors and actresses saw. They were blown away by its realism, which it was very, very nice looking. Stan Winston's team dug a hole beneath the puppet, and 8 puppeteers below operated cables and push rods. The backside of the backside of the Triceratops had a door with 3 or 4 men inside of it. The only one of the actors not impressed was Joseph Mazzello because the first dinosaur he got to see up close didn't do anything. To get the Triceratops to breathe, Gary Rindstrom blew into a toy called a Zoob tube to add the harmonics. It's pretty cool the way it breathes. And of course, we get the famous scene of Alan Grant on top of the dinosaur while the breed goes up and down. And, that spawned our famous gif of this.
Oh, yes. Classic.
But that's a pretty cool scene. I remember seeing that scene and I was like, wow, that is really, really cool.
It was very cool.
And of course, again, this scene had more of a subplot to it. There was more of a subplot of the dinosaur eating a poisonous plant, and they found out why, and that's why it was sick. And she kind of like mentions it a little bit with the lilac. She asked about it, but it's not really expanded upon. It was kind of cut out for time issues. But I kind of wish they would kind of explored that. It would have been kind of cool. See her more of her skills.
Oh yeah. It would have been cool.
We then cut back to Nedry, and he is trying to plan his horrible escape. He looks very, very nervous, Tone, when he's talking to them, sweating profusely, and he's basically getting ready to do his little, sabotage. And we see him talking to them, like sweating, and ask them if they want a soda. Remember, he's like, "Hey, you guys want anybody want a soda?
Anybody want a soda or something? Because I'm going up to the machine. I thought maybe I get somebody something because I've had all these sweets and I think I'm going to get something salty. I thought maybe some. I finished debugging the phones. I was going to debug, so I did. You told me that, so I debugged the phones, and I thought maybe I should tell you that the system is going to be compiling for 18 to 20 minutes. So some of the minor systems, they might go on and off for a while, but it's nothing to worry about. It's just a simple thing.
He's totally not up to anything.
Not at all.
Yeah, totally nervous. We see a cool little scene of him going and stealing embryos. He sets his little timer on his computer before he does so to turn off the security cameras. By this time, when he's doing this, the Sadler stood with the Triceratops, and all the others returned to the car, and they were going back because there was a storm coming. His sabotage is a catalyst for the catastrophic events that follow. Wayne Knight's character is based on corporate espionage, a subplot not as fully explored in the film as in the novel. There's a whole subplot in the novel regarding Dennis Nedry and his reason for betraying the park. In the book, Nedry is not Hammond's employee, but subcontracted by him to create the park security system. When Hammond cheats on Nedry's pay, Nedry tries to sue, but Hammond instead creates a smear campaign, making Nedry lose customers. In the end, he is forced to work for Hammond for a fraction of his pay. The company Nedry was selling the embryos to was trying to clone dinosaurs, but were way behind InGen, which is the company that Hammond owns. So Nedry's movie was sort of a payback for him. In the end, the filmmakers decided not to include the plot, which would create sympathy for Nedry and his rather gruesome death. However, there are elements included in the script that hint at this, including Nedry's comments to Dodson about Hammond's mistake of being cheap and his argument with Hammond over money, and makes Hammond's continued statement that he spared no expense ironic, or it may indicate that he spent money on flashier things park visitors would notice, but skimped on more mundane but necessary equipment for the actual running of the park. Now, during this scene, we are learning that a hurricane is coming in, and when Nedry is actually talking to the dock boat captain to wait so he can bring over the embryos, he tells him there's no promises. Well, Hurricane Iniki hit the island of Kauai. I don't know how you say it, Kauai.
Sounds good.
An island in Hawaii it hit. The crew were caught in a very dangerous hurricane, but the filmmakers nonetheless managed to capture shots from the hurricane and use them in the movie. Steven Spielberg convinced Dean Cundley to shoot footage of it before being locked in a hotel room. Many of the crew helped in the cleanup. The incident was a subject of a 2009 episode of the Weather Channel series Storm Stories. In they started in 2003 as a series. When the hurricane hit, the cast and crew were all required to move into the ballroom of the hotel in which they were staying at. Sir Richard Attenborough, however, stayed in his hotel room and slept through the whole event. When asked how he could possibly have done this, Attenborough responded, "My dear boy, I survived the Blitz."
Oh, interesting.
Which is pretty hilarious.
Great.
So we see Nedry going, and then they ask, where have the cars stopped at? And we find out that they have stopped at the T-Rex exhibit. And they're sitting there. They find Tim finds some goggles, and I love Gennaro's response. Are those heavy? He's like, yes. Put them back. They're expensive, which makes me laugh. But it's like, Gennaro, how are you gonna tell the grandson of the owner what to do? Yeah, which makes me laugh. But they notice that there is no goat.
What is that? Where's the goat?
That scene was always really cool to me when the goat's body just appears on the car.
Yeah. That was great.
Hey, I parked these other money right now. Kids break shit. That is true, Sam. But this is probably one of my favorite sequences in the film. You see the T-Rex's like little hand, which means that he must have been like this to grab it.
Oh yeah.
Testing she must have been. It was a female on the electric fence, and she pulls it and finds out it isn't. Of course, the lawyer sees this, runs out of the car, and runs to the bathroom.
When you gotta go, you gotta go.
You gotta go.
Which is what Ian Malcolm says as he sees him go. We see the T-Rex bust through the fence, and I love the sounds of the wires, flying by. And we see the first version live version of the T-Rex, which I think is awesome, man. The roar was actually made up of a composite of both dog, penguin, tiger snarls, alligator gurgles, and baby elephant squeal to make it. It is really, really, really cool. However, Gary Rindstrom stresses the key part of the sound is a high frequency element, the baby elephant. Rindstrom describes how the recording session, the baby elephant only did the iconic cute high pitched scream that forms the basis of the T-Rex roar in the film once. We kept trying to get to do again, and the handlers were saying we never heard it before. That's a weird sound. As Rindstrom stresses, the introduction of the T-Rex is a scene expressly planned around sound design. I think maybe other directors would have had a shock moment when you see the T-Rex show up out of the blue. Spielberg was great in the T-Rex scene by getting several moments of tension because you knew that what was coming, and you knew it because you heard it before you saw it. It is a nice thing when movies think about sound that way. And it really is awesome the way he does it. John Sheffrin did the T-Rex, but he did. John Sheffrin did, White Sox announcer. But it is really, really cool how they lead up to its own with the water on the sill of the car, and you see it basically vibrate.
That was very awesome.
You know,
iconic.
And then you hear, the roar when it breaks through, it attacks the car. The full-size animatronic of the Tyrannosaurus Rex weighed about 13,000 to 15,000 pounds. During the shooting of the initial T-Rex attack scene that took place in a downpour and was shot on soundstage, the latex that covered the T-Rex helmet absorbed great amounts of water, making it much heavier and harder to control. Technicians worked throughout the night with blow dryers trying to dry the latex out. Eventually, they suspended a platform of the T-Rex out of camera angle to keep the water off it during filming. Spielberg wanted the T-Rex to sound like King Kong, particularly at the climax of King Kong, the 1933 film, was one of Spielberg's biggest influences when making this film. And during the scenes with the T-Rex, Spielberg would roar like that through his megaphone. The cast cracked up whenever he did that. Sam Neill stated that was kind of more funny than anything, and the acting part was not laughing. It's not easy. The cool thing about the T-Rex is the way it looks. Now, if you're watching the YouTube version, I have a couple pictures here, and one of the animatronics from the Stan Winston School of Character Arts is they kind of show the cutoff part of it, of the T-Rex with the head as an animatronic, and the arms aren't there, but you can see the body. And then we see the head here, which is beautifully done, dude. So much detail, Tone.
Oh, really awesome. The way how in depth it all looks.
Yeah, and then you can see the mouth is kind of covered, and then you have when they were making it walk.
Well, that's cool.
They had a full size one, which I think is awesome. The job of animating the dinosaurs was given to Phil Tippett, who did several pre-visualizations with stop motion animation where models were slightly moved in between shooting separate frames. Motion blur would be digitally added to make the movement seem less jerky and more convincing, a process known as go motion, which Tippett previously utilized for ATs in Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back, and RoboCop 2 Cyborg in RoboCop 2. However, ILM visual effects artists Steve Spaz Williams and Mark A.Z. DePay suggested that most of the dinosaurs could be fully animated on computers, although their boss Dennis Murin told them that they could never do a better job than Tippett. They created a test animation of a skeletal T-Rex anyway, which was shown to Kathleen Kennedy when she visited ILM. Kennedy informed Spielberg, who was intrigued, and ordered another test reel. He was blown away by the final result, where a fully fleshed T-Rex walks through a desert. He and Tippett looked at each other, and Tippett said, "I think we're extinct." Spielberg liked the line and gave it to Jeff Goldblum to say to Sir Sam Neill in the visitor center. Tippett later stated that he's genuinely physically sick from feeling obsolete and left the set for 10 days, but he was later hired to help design the computer-generated dinosaurs' movements. Man, that's gotta be horrible to see, you're supposed to do the movements and then you see this guy bringing in this dinosaur. Arena Richards' audition consisted of standing in front of the camera and screaming wildly, like I explained before, and she does that part when the T-Rex is breathing on them. Now, one part that I always thought, even as a kid, was when the T-Rex roars in front of them, wouldn't it have blown out their eardrums?
You would have thought, because it being as loud as it seemed to be in the theater with the it being right in front of it, and it being real like that. Yeah, definitely.
We also see, during the scene where Gennaro runs into the bathroom and backs up and lands on the toilet, it was actually an unintentional, and Spielberg kept it in the script because he thought it was funny. We then see as the kids are getting attacked, we see, Grant and Malcolm look at this. Grant finds a flare and he brings it out to the Tyrannosaurus Rex to show movement and get rid of it. And Ian, in his quick-witted, decides to do it himself.
Hey! Ian, freeze! Get the cat! Get rid of the fire!
And that whole chase scene was crazy because Ian actually gets launched into the bathroom, gets covered up by the excess of the bathroom building, which is like a bunch of straw or hay or something. And we see Gennaro on top of the toilet and he basically gets eaten. I just love how it's it's funny because he's looking at him and just has wiping the water from his eyes, and T-Rex is looking at him like, what? And then he decides, I'm just gonna eat you. Which is probably one of the most iconic deaths in the film. We then cut to Dennis Nedry, and he has gone the wrong way because he destroyed the dock sign, which, if you look at the film, it was pointing to the left. So if he would have went left, he would have that would never happen to him. And he ends up in the Dilophosaurus cage, to where he sees it walking around, and Nedry gets a little scared, and he tries to give it a stick to fetch. And it doesn't go. So Nedry decides to talk to it in this way.
No wonder you're extinct. I'm gonna run you over when I come back down.
So as he goes up to his car to get out of the rut it's in, he climbs up this little waterfall and he falls down again, and he gets spit on by the Dilophosaurus, which gives this goo that he's looking at. And you can see him tussing his chest and looking at it. And he goes up and he gets shot in the eyes. And it always makes me laugh how Nedry screams.
Oh.
As he knocks himself out. Eventually he goes inside the car, and the dinosaur is waiting there for him and eats him. And we see the Barbasol can being covered by mud in the water. Of course, in the future Jurassic Parks, we learned that it was recovered. But the Dilophosaurus fictionist venom spitting ability and its neck frill, which means it spawns out like a mane, became so iconic that almost every other appearance of the animal in popular media, including many Dilophosaurus toys, featured at least one or both of these traits. Some can leave out the dinosaur's striking double crest, from which it got its name, two-crested lizard. In reality, the spitting ability was only made up by Michael Crichton, while adding the frill was the idea concept artist John Grutch. In the late 20th century, scientists mistakenly thought the Dilophosaurus had weak jaws because his fossil skull was incomplete, disoriented, and badly reconstructed. So many books claimed they couldn't have killed prey with its bite. Crichton based this idea about venom spitting on these outdated theories, proposing that Dilophosauruses might have used venom to hunt. This also served to demonstrate that real-life dinosaurs could have looked and behaved much differently than what people believed by studying their bones. The idea turned out to be true when many dinosaurs, mainly raptors, were discovered to have feathers during the 1990s and 2000s. In 2020, Dilophosaurus was also given a scientific makeover. More detailed studies revealed that it's significantly thicker, keratin-covered crest filled with air sacs rather than thin plate-like crests seen in the film, and robust jaws that would have been perfectly suitable to kill prey, meaning it would have not needed venom. Dilophosaurus' fictional features are consequences of a dinosaur being not pure-blooded. The frilled lizard DNA is responsible for the neck frill, and the spitting snake's DNA is responsible for the venom. It's a lot of background stuff there.
It
So,
sure is. That's deep.
also, we noticed that it never walks, and the reason being it was hard to make it walk and shift weight with the movement right. A trench was cut into the floor of the set for the puppeteers, but Spielberg elected to have it just appear instead to make the scene more ominous and surprising. That's why it just appears in the car. He also wanted more water for the scene coming down the hillside with every fire hydrant going in the studio until they ran out. Michael Lettieri joked every now and then they just splash him in something so he feels there's more water. To this day, Spielberg still feels that scene needed more water. I don't know how much water he needed for this scene. Wayne Knight thought it was a miserable scene, sliding down things covered in mud, soaking wet. He was 370 pounds and he could barely walk, but he loved watching it. A rattlesnake made the noise of the Dilophosaurus neck rattle, which you can kind of hear when it shakes. Because it's scary to listen to. The cute Dilophosaurus sound was made by hopping chirps of a swan, and its spit was used by a paintball mechanism that actually spat from the model's mouth. The venom was made of KY jelly and some food coloring mixed in.
Oh
wow, that's why he's like, ugh. But as we see Nedry meet his end, we then see that Hammond has asked Muldoon and Sadler to go find Grant and the others. Unfortunately for them, they were thrown into a tree by the T-Rex where Tim was in there, and they actually went down to get him in the T-Rex cage. I love when they're talking to Lex, and she tells Grant,
He let us! He let us!
But that's not what I'm gonna do.
he goes up against Tim. They escape the falling truck and go away. Sadler and Muldoon come a little later to find him, and they're screaming for like it's kind of funny that the T-Rex is loose and they're screaming, Ian, Dr. Grant, Alan, Alan. And they find Malcolm covered up in the wreckage. They pick him up and put him on the truck, and while they're looking, everything gets really quiet, and you hear again the ominous thumping and like pounding of the floor, knowing that the T-Rex is coming back. And they're running back to the car, and we see Malcolm saying, come on, hurry up. And we see a T-Rex chase them, which I think is a really, really cool scene that still holds up to today with the way it looks in the film. And we get another iconic Ian Malcolm line.
Must go faster.
This is a very, very iconic scene for Spielberg and one of his trademarks because he's looking in the rearview mirror and watching the monster come towards him. The T-Rex chasing the Jeep took some engineering. Paleontologists alleged a T-Rex could run up to 50 miles per hour, but the model was too big to run that fast, and its bones couldn't support its weight. So they dialed it down to a more acceptable 25 miles per hour. Yeah, that was slow. Hammond says he can go 32 miles per hour in the film. Ian Malcolm says the lion must go faster while being chased by the dinosaur. And Independence Day, another film, co-producer and co-writer and director Robert Emmerich liked it so much that he had Goldblum say it to Will Smith when they were escaping the mothership.
That's funny.
We then see a cut to now them waking up, that being of Alan and the two kids waking up in a tree. That he's kind of bonding with them. A dinosaur sneezes on the girl in the morning, a brontosaurus, and they see that they're woken up by the dinosaurs. They go down and they actually find eggs and find out the dinosaurs are breeding.
Ooh.
And the reason for this is again because they say they're using a South African frog that can change sex in a single sex environment. So there's a bunch of females now they're becoming males and breeding, and they find the little shells. And this is where people think that it is a velociraptor. We also see them go with the Gallimimus, I believe they're called, which are like little running dinosaurs. They see being chased by the T-Rex, which I thought was pretty cool. I know you're loving me pronouncing these names.
Oh, I do, and I love this scene is one of my favorites. The T-Rex and them like being chased.
Mm-hmm. But we see them getting chased, and then he chases the dinosaur and actually eats it. And I love how the interaction between Tim and Dr. Grant and Lex, when he's like, look at it feeds. And like Tim's like, oh yeah, look at all the blood. And Lex is like, can we leave? And he's like, yeah, they take him away. But that's a really, really cool scene when he's like, just like a flock of birds. He's like, oh, they're flocking this way. And they did this with both female and male horses sounds, the sounds of the dinosaurs. They made those sounds from there. And the stampede sound was actually the horses and cattle running or getting herded, which I thought was pretty cool. We then see while they're doing this, we find that Mr. Arnold and Mr. Arnold, Dr. Sadler, and Ian are talking about what they could do next to basically get the park up and running. Because when Nedry actually set off the computer virus, Arnold earlier he was writing in commands via command center, and he got this.
Access main program. Access main security. Access main program grid.
You didn't say the magic word.
Please! God damn it! Hate this hacker crap.
That scene always makes me laugh too. And it has like Nedry with a little Elvis costume on.
Yeah.
But due to this, they couldn't access anything. So they decided to go and restart everything, shut everything down and power it back on. They find out it does work it just needs to, some switches need to be turned on the other side of the compound, which Arnold says he will do. During this time, he's going to walk over there. Malcolm is given some morphine to calm him down, and you see Sadler and Hammond have kind of like an emotional talk about what is real and what isn't, as he talks about the flea circus and whatnot. We then see that Malcolm has woken up after we see the kids running from the T-Rex, and Sadler's getting really, really antsy. She's like, something's going on. Arnold hasn't turned anything on. What is going on? So she decides that her and Muldoon will go to, I keep calling him Muldoon will go to the power shed together. And Malcolm says another great line as Hammond is trying to basically like justify like, oh, this is just a setback. This is just a setback. Disney World had a setback.
When they opened Disneyland in 1956, nothing worked.
Yeah, but John, if the Pirates of the Caribbean breaks down, the pirates don't eat the tourists.
Another great line. So as they go out to walk, they notice that Muldoon notices that the raptors have escaped their cages, and he has his shotgun ready with Sadler, and they walk there, and he says, "We're being hunted." Remember? He says, "We're being hunted." Behind us, they see he tells her to run and lock the door to the shed, which she does. She runs and locks the shed. We see Muldoon actually go and hunt the raptors, and he sees a raptor sitting there, just basically standing there, and he loads his gun up to shoot her, and he gets attacked by one who comes through the side of him, just the way Ian Grant describes to the kid how she comes through.
Clever girl.
And he gets killed. But actually, he was supposed to survive this. There was actually a part in the script where the raptor actually wasn't really hurting him. It was playing with him, which means he's supposed to survive in the end. Unfortunately, the actor who plays Muldoon passed away not too long after this. But it's crazy that they wanted him to survive, which I would not have been, Bob Peck, that is, would not have been believable that like a dinosaur with those big ass nails attacks you and you survive. And even in the shot, it shows him like getting bit in the face.
Not at all. Yeah, no, you're right.
Spielberg wanted the raptors to be 10 feet tall, and that's why it's so big in this film. But Sadler runs in there, and she goes and turns on the power. And I love how she calls Hammond's like, "Oh, we have power." And then that's when the raptor breaks through the thing, and she finds out Mr. Arnold's then she runs away. But during this time, while she's turning on the power, they're climbing over the fence. And he's like, Jim, just jump off as the alarm goes off. And he does jump and he gets electrocuted off
Yeah.
into Grant's arms. And he survives, which is funny. But that was a whole funny scene. What do you think of that one, Tone?
That was again another probably one of the more iconic scenes that I remember. Is just that whole landing in his arms, and me thinking to myself, seeing a lot of electric fences, like, shit, that's gonna hurt.
Yeah, totally. It was a very comedic scene, I thought, but it's also like, damn, how did he not die?
I know, yeah, that too.
We then cut to them going back to the main control center, where Grant leaves the two kids to eat. They see all this food laid out and they just start eating, which I thought is hilarious. And he goes to try to find Hammond and Sadler, which he eventually does find Sadler. But we find out that the Raptors have followed them to the control center, where we see probably one of the most iconic scenes of she sees the shadow of the raptor and she starts shaking like ridiculously.
Oh, yeah.
She shook her arms to add the character's terror for that scene. Then they eventually run into the kitchen where the raptors run around. There's actually a goof. You can actually see the actor that has the raptor's head.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I didn't notice it until I saw it like years later. You can see, but they go in there and they basically have the raptors go and they slip on ice, and people were always saying, "Oh, why was the kitchen door open?" Well, it may seem convenient for the freezer door to not be open. It seems convenient for the movie, and there is ice on the floor that causes the raptor to slip. However, it actually makes perfect sense and shows considerable attention to detail. Since the power had been cut off the night before, the freezer would slowly start to defrost. John Hammond knew this, and is why he can be seen eating ice cream during the conversation with Ellie Sadler, as he knew it would spoil otherwise. He probably left the freezer door wide open since there was no power anyway, causing the ice in the freezer to melt away quicker and form chunks of melting ice on the floor. When Sadler later turns the power back on, this will cause the chunks on the ice to refreeze, making the surface very slippery. So did Spielberg really, really think that? I don't know. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt because he's Steven Spielberg. He also directed Poltergeist. But
Oh, watch out!
Yeah, that guy's gonna get us.
He hears you right now.
And Sam says it perfectly here. This scene with the kids gave kids nightmares, and now he laughs at it. It is a pretty intense scene. It's considered probably one of the most intense scenes in cinema. The Velociraptors were portrayed using both CGI and men in raptor suits. The actors in the suits had to crouch and move in ways that mimicked real animal behavior, which was researched by the special effects team. This scene is frequently cited as one of the most suspenseful scenes in cinema. All the cast were given a raptor model after this film wrapped up, signed by director Steven Spielberg as a gift. It looked very frightening, and Arena Richards, who plays Lex, has it in her house to shock anyone coming in, like a guard at the gate. Jeff Goldblum's model has a prime spot in his house and is cherished as a cherished object. Laura Dern put the raptor model in her son's room near his crib. What? When he was older and saw it, he screamed like never before. She had it put in storage, but hopes one day that the two will be friends. What? Oh, you're talking about the Wayne Knight scene. It's okay, Sam. I read that comment a little late. Real velociraptors were barely 1.5 feet tall, which are smaller than ones depicted in the movie. Shortly after the movie's release, a dinosaur was discovered in Utah, was almost identical to the velociraptor in the film. Although the idea was finally scrapped, one of the proposed names for a new species was Utah Raptor Spielbergi. Wow. But after we see this thing, they eventually get out. They meet up with the people. They go into the little command center to get the door locks to work. And we see the Raptors have learned to open doors. Lex does her hacking, and we find that she can go and apparently hack into a very, very complicated system, which the way they show the hacking makes me laugh, especially now since I work in computers. But she goes and she gets the door locks to work, to where Grant goes and calls Hammond on the phone.
Grant, Mr. Hammond, the phones are working.
Children all right?
The children are fine.
Call the mainland. Tell them to send the damn helicopters.
It's gonna come through the glass!
That crap thing always made me laugh too. When he's like, no. But they escape from that. It's a cool little scene where they have the raptors chase them again, and the final like showdown is them in the middle of the like main entrance to the visitor center, and they are rescued by the T-Rex, who becomes the hero. It's an iconic shot of where the banners falling around them as they kill the raptors, and they're picked up by a helicopter where they say to Lions like, I don't approve your park, and he's like, I totally agree. And they fly off, which ends the film. In the book, actually, Hammond is pissed that they're not approving his park, and the little dinosaurs actually eat him at the ankles, and he falls down and he eventually gets killed.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting. Never read the book. Maybe I
And
should.
yeah, in this film, there he looks at it as more regret. In the book, he's like, nah, I wanted to make money. So that is Jurassic Park, the film breakdown. Excuse me for giving you all this horrible pronunciations.
No. Dinosaur fans alike will appreciate what you've done tonight.
So, any final thoughts on the film breakdown, Tom?
I mean, another excellent example of a movie just with excellent CGI. I'll always remember the scene here at the end, as you were stating, with the banner and the loud roar of the T-Rex. Just a great all-around movie.
Sam, that was lovely. Totally iconic movie. A film that can still be watched today and still holds up to today, my friend.
Sure does.
Do you want to get into the critical reception and fan theories?
Let's do it.
You know that fat cocksucker says I look like the Shah of Iran?
Who does? Tony. I never got that at all.
The film had a budget of $63 million and made $1.1 billion worldwide. It is Spielberg's most commercial success film, which is pretty ironic. The film had won 3 Oscars, one for Best Sound, Best Effects, and Best Effects and Sound Editing. Jurassic Park received a wide range of critical acclaim upon release, particularly for its groundbreaking special effects and thrilling sequences. Roger Ebert gave the film 3 out of 4 stars, noting that while the dinosaurs and technical execution were astounding, the film ultimately felt like a monster movie. He praised Spielberg for creating tension in the action sequences, especially the famous T-Rex and Velociraptor scenes, but felt the story was more of a vehicle to showcase effects rather than delivering emotional depth. Ebert also expressed a sense of missed opportunity, laminating the films lacked the awe and wonder of the earlier Spielberg films like Close Encounters, which he felt inspired more reflection on larger themes. Nonetheless, he acknowledged it succeeded as a good entertainment and praised its ability to thrill audiences. James Bertinelli of Real Views was highly positive about the film's special effects, calling them by far the most impressive and believable at the time. He noted that the realism of the dinosaurs achieved through a combination of CGI and animatronics was groundbreaking achievement that set the standard for future films. However, like Ebert, he pointed out the film's plot was somewhat formulaic within character development. He believed audiences would flock to the theaters not for a deep storytelling, but for the exhilarating action and spectacular dinosaurs. Well, there's 2 people that agreed. Owen Gibberman from Entertainment Weekly highlights Spielberg's ability to tap into childlike wonder like the dinosaurs inspired. He called the film a flight of fantasy with enough tension and awe to keep audiences hooked. Gibberman pointed out that the dinosaurs were miraculously organic creatures, thanks to the film's blend of practical effects and CGI. Despite not acknowledging that the film and characters weren't the film's strongest elements, Gilman felt Jurassic Park succeeded due to its playful yet terrifying set pieces and the sheer spectacle Spielberg orchestrated. Overall, Jurassic Park was lauded for its innovative use of technology, which set a new benchmark for special effects. Some critics felt the story and character development took a backseat, which we just learned that it kind of did. Despite these critiques, the film remains beloved and has a lot of thrills in it, tensions, and sense of wonder. Jurassic Park had a monumental cultural impact, both immediately after its release and in the decades that followed. The film's groundbreaking special effects and storytelling left an incredible mark on the film industry, inspired by various spin-offs. And we love those spin-offs, don't we, Tone?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
There are a bunch of spin-offs in different media. A breakdown of the cultural impact was that it did groundbreaking special effects, which the special effects still hold up to this day. Tone, like I showed the pictures of the T-Rex, they were awesome. It revolutionized the use of CGI in filmmaking. The combinations of animatronics and digital effects by ILM and Stan Winston for the animatronics was like something it has never done before. Before, it was only used in, CGI was only used in limited capacities, like in Terminator 2 and the Abyss. Terminator 2, probably the most iconic CGI is probably when the T-1000 comes back together after it explodes. That was pretty cool. And this movie actually demonstrated the full potential of CGI. The film, of course, was the highest grossing film upon its time in 1993, surpassing Spielberg's own E.T. It held the record until some film called Titanic took it over. The movie's financial success reinforced the viability of a large-scale, effects-driven blockbusters and opened the door for franchises built on it. Unfortunately, again, like I said before, Tony, and you also said it rekindled my love in dinosaurs, and this film rekindled a lot of love for people in dinosaurs and fascination with dinosaurs. Museum reported increased attendance, and dinosaur-related toys, books, and merchandise surged in popularity due to the film. The film brought paleontology and ancient life into the mainstream in a way that few films had done it before. It's kind of ironic, right?
It is. I mean, again, like I talked about at the beginning about how the malls would bring the dinosaurs. It was all because these movies just really took off.
Yeah, it had had an influence on theme parks. You have at Universal Studios where you actually see the T-Rex in there, which is really, really cool. When you go on the slide, I don't know if you've seen it, Tone, but if you go on the Islands of Adventure, it's called, you go on the ride, and as you drop down, the T-Rex is actually trying to bite you.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of cool. For franchise expansion, it had film sequels, including The Lost World in 1997, Jurassic Park 3 in 2001, Jurassic World in 2015, Jurassic Kingdom in 2018, Jurassic World Dominion in 2022. We have a new film coming out with Scarlett Johansson in the lead role. Chris Pratt has retired, and so did Bryce Dallas Howard. So it's another film coming out. So it's continuing to make money. There's also a TV show called Camp Cretaceous, which is a Jurassic World animated series on Netflix, which is actually pretty cool to watch. It also spawned a bunch of video games, most notably the game for Sega Genesis and SNES under the same name, where the dinosaur actually says Sega.
I remember that. Yes.
Yeah. I remember playing that game. The game was hard as hell too.
It was very hard. Very hard.
Also, the Jurassic World Evolution game in 2018 and the Lego Jurassic World in 2015, and made comics and merchandise. And the merchandise has basically generated billions of dollars in toys, clothing, and even food tie-ins. Hasbro and Mattel produce extensive toy lines based on the franchise, and Jurassic Park action figures remain popular to this day. Those are the cool cups they had.
I remember, this is what I remember, and sadly, my dad, instead of putting them away, we kept them and used them every single night and kept washing them, where they just became so faded we threw them away, when the reality is we should have just set them aside. William H. Macy's great in Jurassic Park 3.
Mr. Kirby?
Yes.
Yeah. When I think of like the toys and games, the board games and stuff, first when I'm doing this, I found that they made toys for all the characters except Lex, and she was very upset about that.
I can understand.
But I remember the board game, and I remember as a kid playing it. One of my friends had it, and we played the board game a lot. And he always picked the character of Lex because he thought it was the game warden. And when I told him that's Lex, he stopped picking that character, which just made me laugh. He's like, "Oh, I'm the game warden." I'm like, "No, it had a hat." I'm like, "I think that's the girl." And he's like, "No." He's like, "No, it's the game warden." I'm like, "No, it's the girl." And he's like, "Oh, I'm not picking that one anymore." It was just funny as little kids, But it always makes me laugh. But this film spawned multi-billion-dollar profits for the movie industry.
Oh yeah.
So Spielberg's still getting paid, man.
Oh yeah.
And we have one fan theory, Tone, and it's a long one. I don't know why I do this to myself, but this one is called the Jurassic Park theory. The T-Rex attack was planned. It's on the subreddit of fan theories, and it's by Ordinary Critic. And I think we read a couple of his before. He says, did you think it was oddly coincidental that Dennis Nedry shut off the park security precisely when the park guests were touring the island? I don't think it was a coincidence. This was planned. Let me explain. The premise for the 1993 film is that InGen, the company responsible for creating Jurassic Park, experienced a workplace death while transporting raptors to the pen on Isla Nublar. John Hammond is a rich man, but he's not rich enough to fund the entire park. He has investors. After hearing about the death on the island and fearing a $20 million lawsuit from the worker's family, the investors request that the park's safety be evaluated by two outside opinions: a mathematician, Malcolm, a paleontologist, Grant, and an internal representative from the investors, a lawyer named Donald Gennaro. The trio of evaluators, plus paleobotanist Ellie Sadler, are invited to the island by Hammond so they can observe the first tour and report back after 48 hours as to whether or not they endorse the safety of the attraction. This should have been a run-of-the-mill insurance inspection, but a rival genius had other plans. Enter Dotson. Dotson, we got Dotson here. Does anyone care about that? I do. Though his screen time is brief, Lewis Dotson is the primary human antagonist in the story. He hires two agents, an automation specialist named Dennis Nedry and an unknown dock worker to steal the dinosaur embryos from the park. Was stealing the embryos the full extent of the plan? He says this is the actual plan. I don't think it's a coincidence that Dotson planned the embryo heights at the same time the investors' evaluators were touring the site. Dotson works for InGen's rival genetics engineering company, Biolson. The competitor is 10 years behind InGen, and they desperately need to catch a break. What if Dotson's plan was to not only steal the embryos, but also to completely destroy InGen's funding perspectives? Think about it. Biolson was probably courted by the same investors as InGen, and they likely know that InGen was a frontrunner due to their advance in gene sequencing technology. But their safety record was a suspect after the raptor incident. Biolson could have been aware that the investors mandated a 2-day expert evaluation before the next round of funding was released to InGen. That could be possible. Nedry did work for Hammond.
Yeah.
If Dotson could meddle with the investors' evaluation tour, he could crush any chance of InGen receiving funding and possibly secure investors for Biolson. It makes sense for Biolson to go to this extent. The park is estimated to have higher attendances than zoos and even sports. This is a next multi-billion-dollar entertainment industry, as per the slides shown in Jurassic Park's restaurant. When Dotson meets with Nedry, he specifically asks about the security system. Dotson could have insider knowledge that Nedry's proposed plan to shut down minor security systems to access the embryo stage would snowball and knock out all the major fences system around the park. Nedry's plan only required the minor door systems to be shut off, so he could access the embryo storage. The rest of the plan was to manually override the main gate and deliver the embryos to the main gate at the dock before 7 p.m. Dennis suspected that it would only take 20 minutes. If he had returned, the security systems would be reactivated and nobody would notice what he had done. Dennis isn't known to be a murderer, but he's an upset contractor that is willing to sell his client's intellectual property for $1.5 million. I speculate that Dotson had a third agent within Nedry's Cambridge office that was willing to commit the more heinous act that would put the guests' lives in danger. The agent could have tampered with Nedry's space code or White Rabbit program, in such a way that all the park's fencing systems were switched off during the tour, allowing chaos to unfold. The aftermath, the tour with the evaluators failed devastatingly. Multiple people died, and the remaining evaluators chose not to endorse the park. Lewis Dotson won half the battle. The stolen embryos were lost, but InGen's fate was sealed, and Biolson successfully eliminated their competition. What do you think? Dotson confirmed to reappear in Jurassic Park Dominion. Do you think the movie would shed more light in the backstory? Which they do, because this is actually written a couple years ago. Note, this is mostly based on the movies. The books flesh out Dotson's character in much more detail, especially in The Lost World. What do you think about that?
Interesting. He has a lot of interesting thoughts. Very in depth. I gotta start doing this. I think I could be really good at these just coming up with these amazing theories.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they can, because it kind of explains why Nidri, he was he in the book he's a contractor, as it says, and he handles the security systems. So I think that the reason that Dotson asks him about them in the movie is kind of like they left out that information about him to put in, the film. So it's kind of like backstory that if you read the book,
Mm-hmm.
But it could be believable. Sam sold. He says he believes it.
Hey, that's all we need. That's the best.
Yes, sir. And that is our full 3-part breakdown of the Jurassic Park film. That was a lot of talking and a lot of spitting there, buddy.
Oh, that was good. That was really good.
So Tone, now I want you to do some talking and give me the Sugar Baggies soundtrack pick of the week.
Oh, I got a good one. Let's do it.
The Sugar Baggies soundtrack pick of the week.
We're going to Wayne Stock this weekend. This week, Friday. Wayne's World 2 soundtrack. I didn't pick the first one because, that would just be too obvious. I could pick that at any time. Let's go with the Wayne's World 2 soundtrack. What I remember about the Wayne's World 2 soundtrack and the Wayne's World 1 soundtrack, these were like some of my favorite cassettes when I had these soundtracks. They were just loaded with lots and lots and lots and lots of good stuff. The movie itself here was loaded with a lot of good just musical interludes in general. What I remember most, and I laugh at because one of our first times getting together on the show, I think you invited me on with the show earlier, and we did music and we argued about the Doors movie. They allude to the naked Indian walking around in this movie, which they spoof from the Doors Oliver Stone movie. But that being said, you got Jim Blossoms doing Idiot Summer, Joan Jett and the Blackhawks, Dinosaur Jr. doing Out There, who are currently opening up for Weezer, really cool, Spirit in the Sky, Norman Greenbaum, Louie Louie by Robert Plant, why not? Aerosmith's in the movie, that song right there, Shut Up and Dance, pretty cool song. Just again, really, really great movie soundtrack. I always wish that maybe a couple years after this one, they did a third one, but they never did. And, that's okay. Hopefully they don't. By the sounds of these movies that they're redoing, we don't want them to redo a third one because it would just be like, again, a greatest hits, probably more Bohemian Rhapsody, which we love, but this is a good soundtrack. I like the soundtrack. What do you think?
Oh, they're going to redo Wayne's World. They need to make money, man.
Well, that's the problem. It's like, honestly, I like everything I see in the trailers for the Beetlejuice, but then after I know it's going to be even a couple slots lower than Alien Romulus if I felt that way. Just by what I see, I don't know why it's like that. From what I read, it sounds like Tim Burton, though, supposedly this is very imaginative movie on his front. But again, maybe like you said, it's an easy money. It's easy money as opposed to trying something a little bit more original.
I mean, you know how it is, Tone. That's all I gotta say.
I know how it is. I do know how it is. I know that we just had an awesome show. I know how that is. That was pretty awesome.
Yes, sir. That was it was an awesome show. Just to do some cleanup here, and a little bit of announcements. We have a special announcement for next month that I released via the Twitters. Let me just play that for you right now.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Be my hit.
Fuck you!
Time to join the club.
Oh, you're after my own heart there at the end. You know, that's my favorite.
Yeah, that's why I put that in there. 31 Days of Horror is back for the October. So on October 1st, all the way through Halloween, there will be a new horror movie mini review released on our YouTube channel, Sadistic Penguin Studios. We will have, different movies from the past 2 years I've done it. This is year 3. I released these. They're about maybe 3 to 4 minutes long. Nice little like information. It's kind of give you like a little intro to the movie and a little explanation, maybe some favorite parts of it, to give you kind of like pique your interest to watch it. They're really fun to do. Very long and time consuming. So I probably won't have no live this month, but I got some of them already in the can, and I'm really looking forward to this because it's like Halloween, of course, is my favorite month. One of my favorite holidays. Horror movies are right up my alley. I know, Tony, you love them. I shared the list with you this year, and we got some fun ones coming out.
I mean, I could be, I know, I've done a couple things on the network here, but of all the things that we do on the network here, I wish I had all the audio of all the people and all the things and all that I've shared about what you put together. Because honestly, it like I've showed Katie. Me and Katie watched all of them, just the intros of all of them. When I'm like, look at that, look at what, and honestly, the movies you pick, still to this day, I'll go and I'll look. What's the one that you talk? It started with the N.
Nefarious.
Yes. Still to this day, every time Amazon Prime, it's the first movie that pops up, and I think of you because I wouldn't have known about it unless I watched your cool video, man. So definitely check those out, guys. They're great.
Yeah, thanks, man. It really means a lot. I really enjoy doing them, and if you guys like them, check them out. Also, we had a poll done this week on the Sadistic Penguin Studios Twitter, and we asked which character would you want to see on a Halloween shirt. This picture of Penguin Voorhees won. So this will be actually posted to our Big Cartel website soon for shirt and hoodie orders. We'll let you guys, we'll have an official announcement when it goes out. But if you're watching on the YouTube, this picture will be come out with the Penguin Voorhees underneath the name. It's a cool little picture. I like them. We have a couple more that didn't make it, like Penguin Juice and Penguin Myers. But well, hold on.
I just got this idea of a commercial. You could be like, "Do you want this sweater?" And then it's like Crispin dancing, like
Yeah.
and it's really cool though. I love
do
it.
that. Yeah, I could do that.
Really great, really great. I mean, all the designs that you put together. I'm just praising you, but again, really awesome, my man. Really great.
You're awesome too, Tony.
Oh well, you say that to me all the time. You're the king of sending out amazing texts saying that, but when it comes down to the real deal of even before that first year, 3 years ago, when you did the Halloween stuff, it was like, this is awesome. Because honestly, what it shows is passion in all of this, and that's why we're here.
Yes, sir. And with that tone, since next week is a Sox game on Friday, we are going to hold off on doing a next week's show. So we will not be back next week. But after that, we will be back every Friday after that at 8 p.m. And we'll be announcing our subject probably next week. So be sure to check out the At the Show podcast on Twitter to get your updates, or you can check us out at our website. We usually update there, or our personal handles. Tone, what's coming up on the Hookup on Music?
Well, this past last week, we really covered some awesome stuff. We talked about some Blind Melon. We also talked about that Oasis reunion you mentioned. We talked a little Oasis earlier. And also, which was really crazy, I alluded that possibly Linkin Park was getting back together. And, well, they ended up getting back together the very next day. So I'm sure we'll be commenting on some of that stuff. Possibly a guest. I've reached out to a couple. We'll see what's coming on. I'll make the announcement soon. So check into that on Wednesday at 7 p.m.
Yes, Tony does an excellent job. I watch his shows on the way to train. I can't watch them live because usually have other activities, but awesome stuff. Also, Brewhand Luke released a couple of the Grateful Ducks podcast, breaking down the first week in college football. Really, really good insight from Luke. He has some funny pictures and really, really good, sports stats and insight from him. He'll probably be releasing a video tonight as well for tomorrow's tailgate. So every Saturday he'll be releasing a Grateful Ducks tailgate. We'll be live every once in a while, but most of the time I'll probably record it because Luke has stuff to do on Saturdays. And then we will be back in 2 weeks. And the Drafty Pod did 2 shows. One with things your parents told you that aren't true, which I thought are things you believe as a kid that aren't true. A great episode with Mrs. Queen Ass, Caitlin Reeves, and Zombie Jackie. And then he did a mascot draft with Luke and Dougie from the Chicago Sports Bums. So check those 2 shows out. Brian's always doing some pretty wacky content. It's pretty fun. I know he has some special stuff planned in the next couple weeks. So be sure to check him out. Thank you so much for watching, listening, and reading our stuff. We really appreciate it. And we'll be back in a couple of weeks, everybody.
Yeah, and I guess I get to do this just one last time. Na 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 na. Okay, everyone, take care. Have a good week.
Have a good week, everyone.
Thanks for listening to the At the Show podcast, a Sadistic Penguin Studios production.
Game over, man. It's game over. What the fuck are we gonna do now? What are we gonna do?
Maybe we could build a fire, sing a couple of songs, huh? Why don't we try that?